Om Vishwandarpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyannijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirivod Yatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtham Shaktin च तत्पुत्र पराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्द योगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वातिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठम् अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ वासुदेवेन्द्रयोगीन्द्रं नत्वा ज्ञानप्रदं गुरुं मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधोऽभिधीयते. I welcome you all to the 51st class of the Fundamentals of Vedanta series. Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyeti. This is the final vision that I have to come to, that I am the Satyam and all else is Mithya. And this is the final message of Vedanta that Tattva Bodha gives out in the Sutra Vakyam. Me being Satyam, I am fundamentally unaffected by everything else. Just as gold is unaffected by any changes that happen to the names and forms of the ornaments. The waker is unaffected by the dream, or the sand is unaffected by the mirage water. This is the fundamental character of Satyam, that it is unaffected by Mithya. And it is not that I have to become this Satyam, I have to change somehow in order to become this Satyam. What Vedanta is telling me is that I already am this Satyam. But I don't know that I am this Satyam, and that is what is causing all of my samsara. So how do I come to this vision? That is the question. And that is why Tattva Bodha presented the Srishti Prakriya first. If we look at the pillars of Vedantic teaching, we can say that there are three pillars associated with the Vedantic teaching. One is Brahma Satyam, the first pillar. The second is Jagan Mithya, that the world is in a lower order of reality. The first is Brahman is the higher order of reality. Second is Jagan Mithya, the world is in a lower order of reality. And the third is Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. This Jiva is not different from Brahman. And that is why I am Satyam. That equation works. So how does Tattva Bodha present these three pillars? First is it gives out the Srishti Prakriya as to how this entire manifestation emerged. And then it gets into the Mahavakya Vichara. The idea of the Srishti Prakriya is to tell me Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. The first two pillars of the Vedantic teaching, whereas the idea of the Mahavakya is for me to come to Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha, that I am Brahman. So first Tattva Bodha gives out the Srishti Prakriya. And what does it say there? Before this creation emerged, there were two factors. Brahmashraya, Maya Asti. That Brahman was there and Maya was there. And Brahman is this attributeless consciousness, and being attributeless, it is also changeless. And since it's changeless, Brahman alone cannot explain for these diversity of names and forms, and therefore it also brings in the second factor, which is Maya, which is all the names and forms in an unmanifest form. So Brahman is presented as the Vivarta Upadana Karanam, the changeless material cause, just as rope undergoes no change in the production of the snake. Similarly, Brahman undergoes no change in the emergence of the manifestation. And Maya is the Parinami Upadana Karanam, meaning that Maya is the changing material cause. And just as the entire tree was unmanifest in the seed, the entire movie is unmanifest in the DVD, the entire dream world is unmanifest in the waker, similarly, the entire world that is about to emerge is unmanifest in Maya. The Maya is the primordial unmanifest matter, whereas Brahman is the primordial changeless attributeless consciousness. And from the mixture of these two emerges this entire creation. And we said we don't even use the word creation, we prefer to use the word manifestation, because it's really a conversion of the unmanifest to the manifest. Just as the unmanifest seed becomes a tree, the unmanifest movie becomes the movie we can see. The unmanifest dream in the waker becomes the manifest dream. So Maya is Brahmashraya, Maya is Mithya. Maya cannot exist separately. It rests upon Brahman. It borrows existence from Brahman. And therefore, the world that is an evolute of Maya, that emerges out of Maya, also depends upon Brahman for its existence. And therefore, the world is Mithya. And how does this manifestation emerge? Tattva Bodha talked about four stages: Sukshma Bhuta Shrishtihi, Sukshma Bhautika Shrishtihi, Sthula Bhuta Shrishtihi, and Sthula Bhautika Shrishtihi. Initially, these first five subtle elements emerge: Akashaha, Vayuhu, Agnihi, Jalam, and Prithvi. They emerge from Brahman, backed by Maya. And then out of these five Sukshma Bhutas emerge the Sukshma Shariras of all the Jivas. And then from these five Sukshma Bhutas, through the process called Panchikaranam, emerge the five Sthula Bhutas that we are able to observe. And from these five Sthula Bhutas emerge the gross bodies and the gross universe. So, what is the take home point from this that we discussed? Just like from cotton emerge these sukshma fibers, and from these fibers emerges yarn, from the yarn emerges the fabric, and from the fabric emerge a variety of dresses. But if we look at what is the reality of this, it is cotton all the way. And everything else is reduced to names and forms of cotton. Similarly, from Brahman, backed by Maya, emerges Akashaha. From Akashaha, Vayuhu. From Vayuhu, Agnihi. From Agnihi, Jalam. From Jalam, Prithvi. And from these Sukshma Bhutas, the Sukshma Shariras, and from these Sukshma Bhutas emerge the Sthula Bhutas. From the Sthula Bhutas, the gross body and the gross universe. But if you look at the reality of all this, it is Brahman all the way. Because all of this depends for its existence upon Brahman. And everything else is Nama Rupa of Brahman. So the ultimate message here is Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. The two pillars of the Vedantic teaching are communicated here through the Srishti Prakriya. So now remains the third pillar. Because how am I connected to Brahman? Unless that is clear. Brahman may be Satyam, Jagan may be Mithya. What have I got to do with it? That will be the question. And therefore, for moksha, for my own liberation, I have to understand that Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. That is where the Mahavakya Vichara comes in. So we discussed this, that Brahman lends existence to this universe. But there is one second important factor also. Brahman lends consciousness to this universe also. We talked about the evolution of the Shariratrayam and the Prapanchatrayam. At the individual level, we have the Karana, Sukshma, and Sthula Sharira, the Shariratrayam. At the level of the total universe, we have the Karana Prapancha, which is Maya, and then the Sukshma Prapancha and the Sthula Prapancha. And there is a certain equivalence in between these two. So we took these as pairs. We took the Karana Shariram and the Karana Prapancha. Both are this primordial, unmanifest matter. Mayikam, both are Maya. And then at the second level, we have the Sukshma Sharira and the Sukshma Prapancha. Both are made of these Sukshma Bhutas. At the third level, we have the Sthula Sharira and the Sthula Prapancha. Both are made of these Sthula Panchabhutas. But all of them are matter. And being matter, they are fundamentally inert. They don't even possess an iota of consciousness. Then how does this body become sentient? We took the example of the moon. The non-luminous moon becomes luminous. And how does that happen? It happens because sunlight is reflected on it. Surya Pradibimba is found on the moon. And then the moon becomes luminous and it's also able to illumine other things. Like the earth, it illumines the earth on a Purnami night. So similarly, the Shariratrayam is pervaded by Brahma Chaitanyam. And when the Shariratrayam is pervaded by Brahma Chaitanyam, Brahma Pradibimba is formed there, a reflection of consciousness. And this is what we call the sentiency. Then this combination of the reflected consciousness and matter, it begins to say, I am, I exist. So it has this self-awareness, which is comparable to the luminosity of the moon. And then just like the moon is able to illumine other things, similarly, this sentient jiva who is self-aware is also capable of being aware of other things. And therefore he says, I am, and he also says, this is a pot, this is a cot, this is a mat, this is a hat. And just like this sentiency develops in the Shariratrayam, similarly the Prapanchatrayam is also pervaded by Brahma Chaitanyam. And Brahma Pradibimba is formed in the Prapanchatrayam also. Because of this, the entire universe, the total, begins to behave like an immense organism, sentient organism. So there is formation of Brahma Pratibimba in the Sharira Trayam. There is formation of Brahma Pratibimba in the Prapancha Trayam also. And if we look at the three things involved in this matter becoming sentient. Firstly, there is the Brahma Pratibimba. And the Brahma Pratibimba has to be formed on some medium. And that medium is the Sharira Trayam or the Prapancha Trayam. So there is this reflected consciousness, and then there is the reflecting media on which the reflected consciousness is formed. That is pervaded by Brahma Chaitanya. And then there is Brahma Chaitanyam itself, which is the original consciousness. So we talked about three factors involved in matter becoming sentient: the reflected consciousness, the reflecting media, and the original consciousness. So if we look at Jiva, then Jiva is the reflected consciousness in the Sharira Trayam that is pervaded by this original consciousness, Brahma Chaitanya. Whereas Ishvara is the Brahma Pratibimba formed in the Prapanchatrayam reflecting media, which is pervaded by the Brahma Chaitanyam, that is the original consciousness. So now the question is that are these the same or are they different? Are Jiva and Ishvara different or are they the same? So if we look at it from the angle of the reflecting media, then they are very different. Because this reflected consciousness, it begins to get the attributes of the reflecting media also. In case of the Jivatma, the reflecting media is very small. It is a puny Shariratrayam. In case of Ishvara, the reflecting media, the RM is vast. It is the entire Prapanchatrayam. And therefore, Jiva is Alpajna, has little knowledge. Alpashaktiman has got a few skills and is a Karta Bhokta. He does some things in the world and then gets Punyam and Papam. And then he is also a Bhokta who experiences the results of Punya and Papa. So Jiva is in the clutches of the law of karma. Whereas if we take Ishvara, then Ishvara is this reflected consciousness in the reflecting media of the Prapanchatrayam. And from this emerges the entire Jagat. From this, initially, the Prapanchatrayam, meaning there was only Maya. And then there was a reflected consciousness formed in Maya. That is the Ishvara in unmanifest primordial matter. And from this emerges the entire Sukshma Prapancha and the Sthula Prapancha. So Ishvara is Sarvasya Karta. He is the Karta of this entire creation, entire manifestation. Therefore, Ishvara is Sarvajna. And Ishvara is Sarva Shaktiman also, because Ishvara didn't need anybody's help to bring this out, bring this entire Prapancha out. Therefore, Ishvara is Sarva Shaktiman. Now, Jiva releases his actions into the universe. Those actions are processed by the laws of the universe. Where did these laws of the universe come from? The laws of the universe were also unmanifest in Maya. Therefore, if at all there is an author for the laws of the universe, we can only say Ishvara is the author of the laws of the universe. Jiva is not the karma phala hetu. Ishvara is the karma phala hetu. Therefore, these laws of the universe are the ones that determine the results of the actions of the jiva. The action released by the jiva is processed by the laws of the universe, and then out comes the outcome. The Jiva is not the author of the outcome. The Jiva is purely the author of the action. The outcomes are determined by the laws. The laws are authored by Ishvara, and therefore Ishvara becomes karma phala data, the dispenser of the results of actions of the Jiva. Therefore, if we look at it from the point of view of the reflecting media, then Jiva and Ishvara are diametrically opposite. But then what Vedanta points out is that both of these reflections are distorted versions of the original. And they are distorted because of the reflecting media, not because the original has got these attributes. Just like when I stand in front of two mirrors, one is a convex mirror, the other is a concave mirror. In the convex mirror, my reflection appears small. In the concave mirror, my reflection appears magnified. Both of these reflections are distorted versions of the original because the original doesn't have this smallness, the original doesn't have the magnification also. Similarly, here, this Jivatma has got the inferior attribute, Paramatma has got the superior attribute, but the original consciousness has got no attributes. It is attributeless. And therefore, all of these attributes belong to the reflecting media, not to the original. But what happens is that the Jiva, the reflection of the Jiva, is mixed with ignorance because the Karana Sharira is Satsvarupa Jnanam Anirvachya Anadya Vidya Rupam. It is Avidya Rupam Ajnanam. That's the Karana Sharira. So the reflection of this original consciousness in the reflecting media of the Karana Sharira is intermixed with ignorance. And what is the nature of this ignorance? The self-ignorance. So this reflected consciousness, which is the sentiency that develops in the matter, it is ignorant. It is ignorant of the fact that my original nature is the original consciousness. That my nature is the original consciousness. It is ignorant of this fact. Just like this person looking at the mirrors, if he takes the distortions to be the reality, assuming that he has somehow forgotten that he has an original face, if he looks at the distortions, and he will take the distortions to be the reality. Similarly, this RC is not aware of the fact that the OC is there. Therefore, the RC takes itself to be the original. In fact, we should say it mistakes itself to be the original. It thinks that I am a product of this matter. It thinks that somehow the matter coming together has produced this consciousness. In fact, that is what the leading view of science is. Science thinks that consciousness is a byproduct of matter. So because this reflected consciousness doesn't know that the original consciousness is there, it takes itself to be a product of the matter coming together somehow. So that is the first thing that happens in the jiva. And the second thing is, if you don't know something, you invariably mistake it. You don't know the rope as a rope, you invariably mistake it as a snake. So similarly, the RC doesn't know I am OC. So firstly, RC mistakes itself to be the original, and secondly, RC mistakes itself to be mixed up with the RM. It takes the attributes of the reflecting media to be my attributes. It starts to say, I am this body, I am this mind, I am limited, I am mortal. And then the same Jivatma then looks at the Paramatma. And just as the RC did not know it was the OC, it also doesn't know that this Paramatma's real nature is the OC. It doesn't know that also. So there also it makes a mistake saying that this distorted version is the real one. And therefore, then it looks at the two distortions. I am small, I am limited. Paramatma is magnificent. Paramatma has got these superior attributes. I have all these inferior attributes. So this is the mindset of the jiva. And then Tattva Bodha points out that both of these reflecting media are upadhis. And upadhi is a significant term. We said that an upadhi is a differentiator. And there are two types of differentiators. One is a visheshanam and the other is an upadhi. Visheshanam is an attribute, whereas an upadhi doesn't have any translation, accurate translation in English, because it is a Sanskrit term that has no equivalent English word. The closest one that people use is an adjunct. Adjunct meaning it is there, some kind of a thing is there. So, which helps differentiate something. So, if we take the example of the blue pot, then the blueness of the pot is an attribute of the pot. The blueness differentiates the pot from the green pot, the red pot, the black pot, and so on. But this blueness has entered into the nature of the pot. It has altered the color of the pot. And therefore, it is a visheshanam, it is an attribute. But if we take the example of pot space, then in case of the pot space, the pot helps distinguish, differentiate the space within from the space outside. But the pot itself has not altered the nature of the space in any way. Because pot is Prithvi Tattvam, space is Akasha Tattvam, and Prithvi cannot alter Akasha in any way. It is Akasha that is accommodating the Prithvi, and Prithvi is coming and going, leaves the Akasha unaffected. So this pot is then an upadhi because it has not fundamentally altered space in any way, but still helps differentiate the space inside the pot from the space, from the total space. So Tattva Bodha is pointing out that these two are upadhis. But what happens to the Ajnani Jiva is that he takes these to be the Visheshanams. He takes these to be the attributes that have fundamentally altered the Atma. Whereas, really speaking, these are upadhis that cannot touch the Atma at all. So the entire spiritual journey is converting this Visheshanam into an upadhi. Ajnani views the same Shariratrayam as an upadhi, and Ajnani views it as a Visheshanam and then suffers. So now, what Tattva Bodha points out is that evam upadhi bhedat jiveshwara bheda drishtihi yavat paryantam tishtati tavat paryantam janma maranadi rupa samsaro na nivartate. It is saying that if you take these distortions to be the reality, how upadhi bhedat, these distortions are caused due to differences in the upadhi. Upadhi bhedat jiveshwara bheda drishti. As long as this bheda drishti between jiva and Ishvara is there, due to this difference in upadhis, then until then the janma maranadi rupa samsaro na nivartate. Now, why is this jiva taking this difference to be the real? Because of ignorance. So, if we look at this, there is a reflection in the Karana Sharira. The Karana Sharira is on the nature of ignorance. Now, as long as this ignorance is there, There will be intermixing of the attributes of the reflecting media and the reflected consciousness. The upadhi is taken to be a visheshana. Then all that happens to the reflecting media happens to the jiva. Asti, jayate, vardhate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, vinashyati. All of these become, these are really things that are happening to the reflecting media, the coming and going of the reflecting media. But then the RC also comes and goes along with it. Therefore, if the jiva takes himself to be the RC, really speaking, the RC doesn't know I am really the OC and mistakes the reflection to be the original, then the jiva says, I am coming and going. This reflecting media comes, I am born. This reflecting media goes, I go. I am born, I am dying. Janma, Maranam happens. And as we have said, as long as this ignorance is there, means as long as the Karana Sharira is there, because this Karana Sharira is of the nature of ignorance. So as long as the Karana Sharira is there, the end of a reflecting media doesn't mean the end of all these janmas. Because the Karana Sharira is there, the Sukshma Sharira is there, then the Sthula Sharira will keep coming. And even at the end of Srishti, the Sukshma Sharira goes, but the Karana Sharira is there. So in the next Srishti, the Sukshma Sharira also emerges. Just as we said, you cut the tree. As long as the roots are there, the tree emerges again. So as long as the ignorance is there, the Karana Sharira is there, the Sukshma and Sthula Shariras will keep emerging, and therefore there is Janma after Janma after Janma, Maranam after Maranam after Maranam. This cycle never ends. Janma Maranadi Rupa Samsaro na Nivartate. And in each Janma, the Jiva says, I am Apurnaha. Why? Because it is identified with the reflecting media. So in each Janma, there is this struggle to gain Purnatvam. The endless struggle to gain Purnatvam through the pursuit of the first three Purusharthas. That is what we called Samsara. There is Janma, struggle, Maranam. Janma, struggle, Maranam. Janma, struggle, Maranam. The cycle repeats. As long as the ignorance is there, this will repeat. And therefore, Tattva Bodha says, Tasmat Karanat Jiveshwarayoho Bheda Buddhi Na Svikarya. So because this samsara will continue, Tasmat, because this samsara is going to continue as long as you see this Jivatma Paramatma difference. Tasmat Karanat, because of this reason, Jiveshwarayoho Bheda Buddhi Na Svikarya, you should not accept this Bheda Buddhi, this difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. Or in other words, you should not see a distance between Jivatma and Paramatma. The greater the distance between Jivatma and Paramatma, the greater the samsara. The lesser the difference, there is lesser samsara. If there is no distance between Jivatma and Paramatma, then there is no samsara. And this is the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. So why is there no samsara when there is no distance between Jivatma and Paramatma? Because in reality, there is no distance at all. The fact that I am seeing a distance is because of ignorance. I am not knowing the original. Not knowing the original, I take the distorted versions to be the real. Therefore, I see a distance between Jivatma and Paramatma. And then I take myself to be Apurnaha and I struggle for Purnatva. Then how do I remove my samsara? One has to be free of this Apurnatva. And how do I be free? How do I be free of this Apurnatvam? How do I become free of this Apurnatvam? By seeing that I am Purna. Then how do I see? I am Purna. Understand that there is no distance between the Jivatma and the Paramatma. Understand that the Jivatma and Paramatma are one. They have always been one. They were never different. There was never any distance to begin. So how do I see this? This is where the Mahavakya Vichara comes in. So here, Tattva Bodha is now entering into the central Mahavakya discussion. So we go back to our discussion on the Pramanas. We did an extensive discussion on the various Pramanas, the means of knowledge. And we said there that Vedanta is a Shabda Pramana. In fact, the entire Veda is a Shabda Pramana. And it's an Apaurusheya Shabda Pramana, means it's a Shabda Pramana whose origin cannot be traced to any human being, and it is not traceable also to any human being, because it gives me certain knowledge that is impossible for a human being to stumble upon. As we said, Pratyakshenanu mityava yastu payona buddhyate enam vidanti vedena tasmat vedasya vedata. The Veda gives me all this knowledge that is impossible to gain through the human means of knowledge. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Arthapattihi, Upamana, Anupalabdhihi, and Laukika Shabdas. Through these, I cannot gain this knowledge that the Veda is giving. So in Vedanta, there are certain statements that are called Mahavakya. And these Mahavakyas reveal the oneness of the Jivatma and the Paramatma. It's called Mahavakya because it gives out this profound truth about the oneness of the Jivatma and Paramatma that I cannot gain through any other means of knowledge. As we said, Laukika Shabdas are the carriers of knowledge gained through other means. But the Vedika Shabdas are the words which themselves are the revealers of knowledge that cannot be gained through any other means. Therefore, these Mahavakya are the Vedika Shabdas, or Vedanta Shabdas, that reveal this Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. So there are 4 well-known Mahavakyas in the Upanishads. The first, the most popular one is called Tattvam Asi. Tattvam Asi. That's a part of the Chandogya Upanishad from the Samaveda. Then the second is Aham Brahmasmi, which is a part of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad from the Yajurveda. And the third is Ayam Atma Brahma, which is from the Mandukya Upanishad, which is a part of the Atharvana Veda. And the fourth is Prajnanam Brahma, which is a part of the Aitareya Upanishad, which is from the Rig Veda. So one Mahavakya from each of the 4 Vedas. But then these are not the only Mahavakyas, really speaking. These are generally the popular Mahavakyas that we talk about. The Mahavakya is any sentence that reveals the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. And there are hundreds of such sentences strewn across the Upanishads that talk about Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. Therefore, they all can be taken to be Mahavakyas. So Tattvamasi is the Mahavakya that generally the Guru teaches Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam with. This is the teaching Mahavakya. Whereas when the student receives the message, once the student receives the message, once the student understands the message, the student says, Aham Brahmasmi. That is the understanding Mahavakya, which is generally said by the student. Now, the Prakarana Granthas, like Tattva Bodha, also talk about the Mahavakyas, but they are basically reiterating the original teaching of the Upanishads. So the Upanishads are the original Apaurusheya Shabda Pramana that talk of the Mahavakyas, that reveal the Jivatma Paramatma Aikya. So now, when a student listens to the Mahavakya, then the student raises an objection. And it's a very common objection, and every student of Vedanta goes through this. Therefore, Tattva Bodha then talks about this objection raised by the student, which we will read now and then get into it. Nanu
ननु
साहंकारस्य किंचिद्यस्य जीवस्य
साहङ्कारस्य किञ्चिज्ञस्य जीवस्य
निरहंकारस्य सर्वज्ञस्य ईश्वरस्य
निरहङ्कारस्य सर्वज्ञस्य ईश्वरस्य
तत्त्वमसीति महावाक्यात्
तत्त्वमसीति महावाक्यात्
कथम् अभेदबुद्धिः स्यात्
कथम् अभेदबुद्धिः स्यात्
उभयोः विरुद्धधर्माक्रान्तत्वात्
उभयोः विरुद्धधर्मात् क्रान्तत्वात्.
So here the student raises an objection. Whenever we see this word nanu, nanu means an objection, that I am not able to understand what you're saying. Or how is this possible? That's what nanu means. So he says, Tattvamasi iti mahavakyat. Tattvamasi iti mahavakyat. So, from this Tattvamasi Mahavakyam, so he has heard the Tattvamasi Mahavakyam, which is essentially saying, you are essentially one with Ishvara, or you are Ishvara. That is the Mahavakya. You, the Jiva, are Ishvara. So when he hears this, he finds it very difficult to swallow this. The mind objects, the mind revolts. It looks like this sentence has got no yogyata. When we discussed the Shabda Pramanas, we discussed that the Shabda Pramana sentence, the sentence that we take to be a Shabda Pramana, must have yogyata as a precondition for knowledge to arise. For example, if I am saying Vannina Sinchet, sprinkle the plants or whatever with fire, then such a sentence is impossible. What it's talking about is meaningless. Therefore, we say it has got no yogyata. Or if somebody says the elephant entered through the eye of the needle, again, no yogyata. So even this looks like a sentence that has no yogyata. And he will explain why. Because the Jiva and Paramatma are so different. How can they be one? And then there is also this idea that this sounds like sacrilege. Because I have always been so used to the idea that I am the slave, you are the master, dasoham idea. And for a person who has practiced this idea, this will sound like sacrilege. There is a certain amount of guilt that surfaces in the mind. That how can this be true? And then he gives the reasons also for this. Sahankarasya kinchit gyasya jivasya. This jiva is alpagya, kinchitya, alpagya. Ishvara is sarvagya. Ishvara is omniscient. As Swamiji says, the jiva is not even able to spell omniscient. He has this confusion whether I comes before E or E comes before I and so on. The jiva has alpagya, kinchit gyasya. And alpa shaktiman, karta, bhokta, we discussed all of this. In the clutches of the law of karma, he has got a few skills, limited skills. And then he also sahankara, meaning has got the limited individuality. He says, I was born on such and such a date. I am this limited mortal being. I have this degree that I had to struggle. I had to struggle with the arrears to get this one degree. So he has this biography associated with him, which is full of all of his limited accomplishments, accomplished with a lot of struggle. So he has got this finite identity. And then once one comes to religion and starts taking religion seriously, then one also has got a religious identity, like I belong to such and such a gotra, and I belong to such and such an ashrama. I am a brahmachari, I am a grihastha, or I belong to such and such a varna, I am a brahmana, I am a kshatriya, etc. All of this is a part of the limited identity of the jiva. But on the other hand, we have nirahankarasya. Ishvara has got no such limited identity. Why? Because he's the Brahma Pratibimba behind the entire Prapanchatrayam. He doesn't say, I am this much. He says, I am the whole. Sarvajnasya Ishwarasya. Ishvara has Sarvajnaha, as we discussed. Ishvara has brought out the entire creation. Sarvasya Karta Sarvajnaha. And Sarva Shaktiman. And he is the Karma Phaladata, the wielder of the law of karma. So Viruddha Dharma Krantatvat. Meaning they are diametrically opposite. Alpagyaha, Sarvagyaha, Alpashaktiman, Sarvashaktiman, Karta Bhokta, Karma Phaladata, Nirahankaraha, Sahankaraha, Nirahankaraha. They are diametrically opposite. So Katham Abheda Buddhisyat. How can there be a Bheda between these? What are you talking about? And sometimes the Shishya who is very respectful of the Guru, he will not even voice this concern in any kind of an amplified manner. He may just say the Guru has said this, but then he is internally having this strife. He may not even voice his concern properly. So he may say, as Swamiji says, Pavam Guru Enochvalindrikar, I am going to sit in his class. He is my Guru, and I will listen to what he has to say. Out of respect, I cannot even say that he is wrong. So the intellect resists this message. So now the question is, how can there be essential oneness? So this is where we talked about Shraddha in the Veda Pramana also. When there is Shraddha in the Veda Pramana, when I don't understand something the Veda says, I don't question the Veda, but I question my own understanding. And that kind of an attitude is required for the Shishya to receive this message. The Tattva Bodha says, continues, Tattva Bodha gives a response here, and we will read that. So Tattva Bodha says, iti chet
इति चेत्
na
न
स्थूल सूक्ष्म शरीराभिमानी त्वं पदवाच्यार्थः
स्थूलसूक्ष्मशरीरभिमानी त्वं पदवाच्यार्थः
उपाधि विनिर्मुक्तं समाधिदशा संपन्नं शुद्धं चैतन्यम्
उपाधिविनिर्मुक्तं समाधिदश समाधिदशासम्पन्नं शुद्धं चैतन्यम्
त्वं पदलक्ष्यार्थः
त्वं पदलक्ष्यार्थः
एवं सर्वज्ञत्वादिविशिष्ट ईश्वरः
एवं सर्वज्ञत्वादिविशिष्ट ईश्वरः
तत्पदवाच्यार्थः
तत्पदवाच्यार्थः
उपाधिशून्यं शुद्धचैतन्यम्
उपाधिशून्यं शुद्धचैतन्यम्
तत्पदलक्ष्यार्थः
तत्पदलक्ष्यार्थः
एवं च जीवेश्वरयोः
एवं च जीवेश्वरयोः
चैतन्यरूपेणाभेदे बाधका भावः
चैतन्यरूप चैत चैतन्यरूपेण अभेदे बाधका अभावः.
So here, Tattva Bodha says, the Guru says, iti chet na. So iti chet means if this is the objection that you have raised, which objection? That Jiva and Ishvara are diametrically opposite. How can there be abheda? If this is your objection, iti chet na, this objection is not valid, say. And the Guru says, don't be disturbed. When you really understand what Veda is talking about, what the Vedanta, the message that Vedanta is trying to communicate, you can also happily accept this without any resistance. You will be able to see the truth behind why Vedanta is saying this. So here we say that the Mahavakya is an equation. So in mathematics too, we have equations. An equation is not required when the two sides of the equation are evidently the same. For example, 7 equals 7 is a useless equation. Suppose I go to somebody and say, I have something really important to tell you. He says, I'm very busy, but yeah, go ahead. And I tell him, 7 equals 7. Now he says, why are you wasting my time? I already know this. You're not telling me anything new. So 7 equals 7 is a useless equation. On the other hand, if the two sides of the equation are evidently different also, then the equation is impossible. So if somebody says 7 equals 8, I have something important to tell you, 7 equals 8. Then he says, maybe this person needs to be admitted to some asylum. So an equation is not required when two sides are evidently the same. An equation is impossible when the two sides are evidently different. So in mathematics, when is an equation required? When the two sides look seemingly different, but there's an underlying oneness behind them. That is when an equation is required in mathematics also. For example, if I say 5 plus 2 is equal to 13 minus 6. Now in this case, the two sides look very different. One is 5 and 2, the other is 13 and 6. One has got smaller numbers, the other has got bigger numbers. One side has got this plus, the other side has got this minus. So the two sides look different. The two sides look very different. But still there's an underlying unity between them, an underlying oneness. And a teacher has to explain what the underlying oneness is. Then I am able to appreciate the oneness. If you show the equation to somebody who is in LKG, that person may not be able to understand. That child may not understand. But as soon as the child enters first grade or second grade, the child can say, yes, this is true. Why? Because some teaching has happened in between. Teaching has gone in to the mind of the student. So the teaching brings out the oneness that is not evident. The difference is evident, but the oneness that is not evident. The difference is seeming here. The seeming difference is there, but a person who doesn't see the oneness will take this to be some kind of an actual difference, will not see the meaning of the equation. But the teaching shows that the differences are only seeming differences. There is an essential oneness that underlies both the sides, that brings both the sides together. So similarly, we say that if the Jivatma and Paramatma are evidently the same, then no equation is required. But clearly there are differences. If the Jivatma and Paramatma are evidently different also, then an equation is not possible. But here the case is like the equation of mathematics. The two sides look different, but there is an underlying oneness. The Jivatma and Paramatma have these differences, but they are really one. And that is why the teaching is required, the Mahavakya is required, a study of the Mahavakya is required. So the Mahavakya is the Abheda Bodhaka Vakyam or Aikya Bodhaka Vakyam. It shows the essential oneness behind the Jivatma and Paramatma. So how does this work? So we say that words are meant to communicate. And how do words communicate? When one person says a word, then the other person listens to the word, and then immediately in the mind of the other person, the meaning of the word arises. So the word is called pada, and the meaning is called padartha. So every pada is associated with a padartha. Every word has an associated meaning. And how do I come to know about the meanings of words? I come to know about it by learning the language. Or when somebody tells me that this word means this, or by looking up a dictionary. There are several means by which one can know what the meaning associated with a word is. Now, the important thing here is that when a word is said, when a word is spoken, then what is the meaning of the word that comes up in the mind? And when the meaning of the word the meaning that is associated with the word refers to the total object, then it's called the Vachyartha. So that is what is referred to here. Sthula Sukshma Sharirabhimani Tvampada Vachyartha. So he's using two words here, Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. That is what we are discussing now. And he says, the Shuddham Chaitanyam Tvampada Lakshyartha. So the Vachyartha is the meaning of a given word that encompasses the total object. For example, if I go to a shop, a potter's shop, and I say, I want to buy this pot. So when the potter hears the sentence, I want to buy this pot, then what is the meaning of the pot that arises in his mind? He understands that I am referring to the total pot that includes the Namarupa as well as the clay. Because he understands that I'm not interested in buying the clay alone without the pot. Well, then he'd have to crush the pot. Or I'm not interested in buying the pot alone without the clay because that is impossible. So he understands, his intellect processes the sentence, and he understands that I am referring to the total pot. So in this case, meaning that is associated with the pot is the Vachyartha. It refers to the total pot. But then in our everyday usage, oftentimes, in fact, more often than the total object perhaps, we don't use words to mean the total object. For example, if I am hungry and I tell somebody, bring me a banana. So in that case, the person understands that he has to get me the banana, the whole banana. He gets the banana out of the bunch and gives it to me, including the peel. So nobody gives a banana, peeling it and then holding the inner fruit and giving it. That would be probably considered impolite in many parts of the world, or uncultured, or even unhygienic. But then when I say I eat a banana, then I tell somebody I ate the banana, then he understands that I ate the fruit and not the peel. So he has mentally filtered out the peel in his understanding of the word banana. Or if a mother tells somebody, this baby is crying, feed the baby a banana. So now this person, one would hope, is smart enough to know that he should not be feeding the baby the peel also. So this person, so we are doing this in our everyday lives. We are taking the meaning of the word and we are filtering it, removing the unwanted aspects of the meaning and taking only the wanted aspect. So similarly, if I take the word I, then the word I is associated with this total individual, which includes this Sthula Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira, the Atma, and the Jnanendriyas, the Karmendriyas, etc. So if I tell somebody I'm writing, then this person understands that it's my Karmendriya that is writing. This Pani Indriya is the one that is doing the work. So he is not going to bring in the Atma or the Jnanendriyas or the consciousness aspect and all of that. He filters all that out. Or if I tell somebody that I am fat, then in the sentence I am fat, he is now taking the meaning of the word I and filtering out all the things like consciousness is not fat. The mind is not fat. Jnanendriya, Karmendriya are not fat. So he understands that what I am referring to is the Sthula Sharira. If somebody says, I am emotional, then one doesn't argue with that person saying that your body doesn't have any emotion. How can you be emotional? So one understands that what this person is referring to is the mind. He has filtered out the body, the Jnanendriyas, the Karmendriyas, etc. So in fact, we are all really good at this. Unknowingly we are good at this without even knowing that we are going through this process. We are communicating, we are understanding the meanings of what each of us what we are telling each other, but behind this process is going on. This is what Tattva Bodha is pointing out. So we'll take this other example of some sentences where such a filtration happens. For example, let us take the wave and the ocean. So now let us just imagine that this wave has somehow got some kind of sentiency. So the wave is a sentient being who can think. So this wave feels that, one day I'm going to crash onto the shores and I'm going to perish. And then every time I'm going somewhere, there are these big waves, and others, they are coming and crushing, and they are crushing me in between, and then I'm being buffeted by these waves. And then he feels that I'm limited, mortal, etc. So he goes to a wave guru. And the wave guru tells him that you, the wave, are one with the ocean. You, the wave, are the ocean. So now, in this case, if he takes the Vachyartha, which is the total wave, including the water and the wave, etc., and if he takes the total ocean, which includes this entire expanse of the ocean, of course, backed by water, etc., then if he takes this includes the Nama Rupa of the wave and the ocean, that is the Vachyartha. Is the total meaning of the word wave and the total meaning of the word ocean. Then the sentence cannot make sense at all. The wave can never be the ocean. But then, if he has Shraddha in the words of the Guru, and then he says that he's saying something which is significant, and then if he says that indeed as water, if I filter out the nama rupa and I come to this partial meaning of the partial meaning of the word wave and the partial meaning of the word ocean by taking the water aspect, then indeed there is oneness. Wave is water, the ocean is water. In fact, it is the water alone that appears as the wave as well as the ocean. And once this wave understands that I am the water, I alone am appearing as water, I am appearing as the wave, as water, I am appearing as the ocean. When he comes to this Lakshyartha, which is the water, then the paradox is resolved. In fact, there is no paradox, there is no contradiction. So similarly, we take another example where there are these kids that are playing. And one of the kids is called Devadatta. So Devadatta is a very naughty kid, and all of these kids are playing together. So this is in their school. Let's say this happened 50 years ago. And now the same kids are having a reunion. Now there are two of these kids from the reunion. Of course, they are no longer kids, but they are now talking to each other. And then this third person comes and introduces himself saying, I am Devadatta. So this first friend immediately recognizes, oh, Devadatta. Wonderful to see you, and all that happens. Well, this second friend is still looking on. He is not able to place who this Devadatta is. So this first person who has recognized Devadatta tells him that this Devadatta is that Devadatta. Saha Devadattaha, I am Devadattaha, I am Devadattaha, Saha Devadattaha, or in short in Sanskrit it's called Soyam Devadattaha. Says this Devadatta is that Devadatta. So this person is looking on. He says, that Devadatta, a small kid with jet black hair. And he was like running around. Whereas if I look at this person, he is balded and then he has got his big beard and a big paunch now. And then he is wearing spectacles. So this Devadatta has got all these attributes of fatness, having a paunch, balded, having spectacles. That Devadatta was a small kid who had this black hair, was running all around. So how can this Devadatta be that Devadatta? So if this is the question, if he is giving importance to the Vachyartha, the total meaning of this Devadatta, and the total meaning of that Devadatta, there can never be any oneness. He cannot see the oneness. So what does he have to do? He has to filter out this Devadatta. He has to filter out the attributes that he is seeing here, and from that Devadatta, he has to filter out those attributes. The black hair and the short height, etc. Here has to filter out the paunch and the beard and the baldness. And then he sees that indeed there is one person behind this Devadatta, and that person is being equated here. So then, when he does this processing, he does this filtering of the Vachyartha to come at the Lakshyartha, the intended meanings of the words. When he comes to the intended implied meaning of the word, then he is able to see the oneness. His eyes light up. Aha, this Devadatta is that Devadatta. So what Tattva Bodha is pointing out is that in this sentence, Tattvamasi, you are Ishvara. You, the Jiva, are Ishvara. In this also, a similar process of this filtration of the Vachyartha has to be done to come at the Lakshyartha to see the oneness. And this process is called Padartha Shodhanam. One has to come from the Vachyartha to the Lakshyartha of the Tvam-pada. One has to come from the Vachyartha to the Lakshyartha of the Tat-pada. This process is called Padartha Shodhanam. And when this Padartha Shodhanam is done, then one sees the oneness. So, that is, I am able to understand the sentences like I am fat, I am emotional, etc., because I have done the Padartha Shodhanam. But when it comes to Tattvamasi, you are protesting. And the reason you are protesting is that because you have not done the Padartha Shodhanam, you have not come from the Vachyartha to the Lakshyartha. So if we look at the Vachyartha, and if we retain the distorting media, the Shariratrayam and the Prapanchatrayam, then the differences are enormous. If we look at the total meaning of the word Jivaha, then that includes the Shariratrayam, the reflected consciousness, the Brahma Pratibimbam, and the original consciousness. That is the total meaning of the word Jiva. And they are all mixed up like this red hot iron ball. In the red hot iron ball, the fire and the shape of the iron ball are all intermixed. So just in the same way, like the red hot iron ball, the Shariratrayam and the reflected consciousness and the original consciousness are all mixed up as one entity. That is the total meaning of this word Jivaha. That is the Vachyartha. And if we look at the total meaning of the word Ishvaraha, then there's a Prapanchatrayam and the Brahma Pratibimbam and the original consciousness. They are all mixed up. Like the red hot iron ball, they are mixed up into one khichdi like entity. That is the total meaning of the word Ishvara. But then, if we are just remaining at the Vachyartha level, if we don't do the Padartha Shodhanam, Vedanta acknowledges that there is enormous difference from the level of the Vachyartha. But then, if one comes to the Lakshyartha, if one sets aside the Shariratrayam and the reflected consciousness in the Jivatma, and if one sets aside the Prapanchatrayam and the reflected consciousness in the Paramatma, then the Lakshyartha of the Jiva is this original consciousness. The Lakshyartha of the Paramatma is also this original consciousness. And in that case, the consciousness is common to both. What Vedanta is really telling me is that there is one consciousness that appears in the form of Jivatma and that also appears in the form of Paramatma. There is one consciousness that is manifesting through the two reflecting medias. Just as we had discussed in the case of the two mirrors, there are two distorted faces, but there is one original face that is appearing as two. So one Atma is appearing as Jivatma, and the same Atma is appearing as Paramatma also. When we look at the words that Tattva Bodha uses, it says, Sthula Sukshma Sharirabhimani Tvam Vachyartha. That the direct meaning of the word Tvam refers to the total jiva, which is this sthula sukshma sharirabhimani, meaning it is the sthula sukshma karana sharira. We can extend it to include the karana sharira also. This is the sharira trayam plus the reflected consciousness and the original consciousness. It is this khichdi of these three. That is the Vachyartha. But then the Mahavakya will not make sense, just as when somebody is saying, I am emotional, and if we are including the body, then the sentence doesn't make sense. That just as if we stick to this Devadatta and that Devadatta, we are taking these external attributes, then the sentence will not make sense. So Tattva Bodha is telling me, Upadhi Vinirmuktam. So filter the upadhi, it says, upadhi vinirmuktam, filter out the upadhi of the shariratrayam. And when we filter out the upadhi of the shariratrayam, then the Brahma Pratibimba also goes along with it, because the Brahma Pratibimba cannot remain if we have filtered out the shariratrayam. Then what is left? Just the original consciousness is left behind. And this is the Lakshyartha that I have to come to. So if one misses the Lakshyartha, if one continues to stick to the Vachyartha, then Mahavakya will not make sense. So Shuddham Chaitanyam Tvam Pada Lakshyartha, this original consciousness that is undistorted. So this distorted consciousness is a Ashuddha Chaitanyam, it is a reflected consciousness. That goes along with the Shariratrayam. What is left is the Shuddha Chaitanyam, the undistorted original consciousness is left. This is the Lakshyartha that I have to come to when the Guru uses the word Tvam, you. When Vedanta says you, I have to understand it like a laser pointer that is pointing to just this consciousness aspect within me. In fact, that is what I am referring to as I really speaking. That is the real meaning of the word I. And then Samadhi Dasha Sampannam. So how does one come to this Lakshyartha? Through this process of filtration, by discrimination, by separation. I set aside the Shariratrayam, I set aside the reflected consciousness. Just as in the sentence, this Devadatta is that Devadatta, I am setting aside the attributes of this Devadatta. The fatness, the baldness, the spectacles of this Devadatta are set aside. Similarly, the Shariratrayam and the reflected consciousness are set aside mentally. So this understanding by which I set aside what is referred to here as the Samadhi Dasha Sampannam. So understanding the message of the Guru that the word Tvam, really the intended meaning of that is this original consciousness by setting aside the unwanted parts of the Vachyartha. This is the Samadhi Dasha Sampannam. And Upadhi Vinirmuktam, the Upadhis have to be set aside. Shuddham Chaitanyam Tvam Lakshyartha. This is the Lakshyartha that I have to come to. So similarly, Evam, in the same manner, Sarvagyatwadi Vishishta Ishvara Tatpada Vachyartha, the Vachyartha of the Tattpada, the Vachyartha of the Ishvara. The word Ishvara refers to this one entity, this total entity that comprises of the Prapanchatrayam, the Brahma Pratibimbam, and the Brahma Chaitanyam. And if we take this Vachyartha, the Ishvara is indeed endowed with all these superior attributes. Sarvagyatvam, Sarvashaktimatvam, Karma Phaladhatritvam. All of these attributes. And when we do the Sahasranama, we are in fact referring to these attributes. Each of the Sahasranamas is referring to some superior attribute of Paramatma. But if I retain all of that, then I can never understand the message of the Mahavakya. In order to understand the message of the Mahavakya, I have to set aside the Prapanchatrayam and along with it, the Brahma Pratibimba also. Then Upadhi Shunyam. If I set aside the Upadhi, which is the Prapanchatrayam, then what is left? Shuddha Chaitanyam Tatpada Lakshyartha. And the Lakshyartha, the intended meaning is the Shuddha Chaitanyam that is behind Paramatma also. The Shuddha Chaitanyam, the Brahma Chaitanyam that is pervading the Prapanchatrayam is what is left behind. This is the undistorted original consciousness, Shuddha Chaitanyam. And therefore, evam cha Jiveshwarayoho Chaitanya Rupena Abhede Badhaka Bhavaha. So when we come to this Lakshyartha of the Tatpada, when we come to the Lakshyartha of the Tvampada, then from that angle, both the Jivatma and the Paramatma are indeed essentially one. Because there is one consciousness, undifferentiated consciousness that is pervading both the Jivatma and the Paramatma. And this original consciousness is attributeless. It is free of the distortions caused by the Jivatmas. Shariratrayam, it is free of the distortion caused by the Paramatma's Prapanchatrayam. Badhaka bhavaha, meaning that there is no contradiction. Just as you are able to understand this Devadatta is that Devadatta, just as you are able to understand you the wave are the ocean, in the same way now you can understand you the Jivatma are the Paramatma. So this is the message of the Mahavakya. Before the Mahavakya is understood, then what is the mindset of the Jiva? The Jiva is saying, I am limited. I am Paricchina. I am the creature. I am a limited creature. I am Paricchina. And then if we ask this Jiva, where is Ishvara? What would the Jiva say? Ishvara is somewhere remote. He is the creator. He is remote. Therefore, Ishvara is Paroksha. So these are the two aspects of the Jivatma's thinking. The ignorant Jivatma says, I am Parichinnaha, Ishvaraha is Paroksha. And then the Mahavakya, the understanding of the Mahavakya dismantles both of these. Because once one understands that I, the Jiva, am essentially one with Ishvara, then what happens? Ishvara is no longer Paroksha. This I that I have been using all my life. What is it referring to? It is referring to this consciousness, the original consciousness that is behind this Jivat. And that same original consciousness is what is behind Ishvara also. So Brahman is not an object that I have to attain. Brahman is not an object that I have to know. Brahman happens to be the very subject, the very I. Therefore, Parokshatvam of Ishvara goes away. The Ishvara that I thought was up in the heavens somewhere, whom I was looking for through various spiritual practices. That Ishvara happens to be me myself. Just as the 10th man was looking for the 10th man, but the 10th man that the 10th man was looking for was the 10th man himself. Just as the necklace on the lady's neck, the necklace that she was looking for was already on the lady's neck, but she was looking for it all over the place. Thinking it is Paroksha, it is somewhere else. It happened to be on the lady's neck. So similarly, the Ishvara that I have been looking for happens to be me, myself, my real nature. Ishvara is not remote. There is no distance between me and Ishvara. The distance that I thought was there between me and Ishvara is just a product of ignorance. Ignorance of not knowing my real nature, ignorance of not knowing that Ishvara and I are fundamentally one. We were never apart for there to be a distance. And then the second aspect comes in. What happens? The first thing is the parokshatvam of Ishvara goes away. For a jnani, Ishvara is here and now. The second aspect is that the paricchinnatvam of the jiva also goes away. Why? Because now I have understood that I am Brahman. And as we said, Brahman is free of these threefold limitations of space, time, and object. And therefore, when I understand that I am one with Ishvara, at the same time, I understand that I am Brahman, the same Brahman that was present in the beginning of this manifestation, from which this entire creation has emerged. And therefore, from me, this entire creation has emerged. By me, this is sustained, and into me, this will resolve. मय्येव सकलं जातं मयि सर्वं प्रतिष्ठितं मयि सर्वं लयं याति तद् ब्रह्म अद्वयम् अस्म्यहम् तद् ब्रह्म अद्वयम् अस्म्यहम्. That non-dual Brahman I am. And then what happened? I have studied the Srishti Prakriya. I know that from this Brahman, this entire Jagat has emerged due to the modification of Maya. This entire Jagat is Mithya. Therefore, what does it mean? It means I am Satyam and all else is Mithya. Therefore, I myself wear the costume of the Prapanchatrayam and appear as Ishvara. I myself wear the costume of the Shariratrayam and appear as Jiva also. I am the creator. I am also the created creature. With every birth, this body goes. Every birth, there's death. This body goes. With every srishti, the sukshma sharira goes. Though these sthula and sukshma shariras are not inherent attributes of me. They keep changing. What is unchanging about me is this consciousness that has always been there and always will be there. As Brahman, I am also immortal. अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. This is the Mahavakya Janya Jnanam. This is the Jnanam that one comes to through the study of Vedanta, and primarily in Vedanta also through the study of the Mahavakya. In the student's mind, there is only one Advaita Brahma Atma that is left. And everything else is reduced to a lower order of reality. The Mahavakya is the revealer, and this Advaita Atma Advaita Brahmatma, Atma and Brahman are identical. There's one and non-dual Advaita Brahmatma is what is left behind. Therefore, in the vision of this person who has got the message of the Mahavakya, I alone am here. In the higher order of reality, there is nothing else. I alone am. And everything else is in a lower order of reality. Everything else is reduced to Namarupas. And as this Brahman, I don't even need to become liberated. I was never even bound to begin with. And therefore, I don't even need to be liberated. And therefore, moksha is not something to be attained. Moksha is my very nature as Brahman. Moksha is no longer a goal. A person who has understood this is no longer a sadhaka also. Because a sadhaka is somebody who has to attain the sadhya. A sadhaka, he is no longer a mumukshu. For a mumukshu, moksha is a goal to be attained. For a sadhaka, the sadhyam, moksha is a goal to be attained. But for this person who has got the message of the Mahavakya, moksha is no longer a goal because it happens to be my very nature. And therefore, as this one non-dual Advaita Brahmatma, I am full, limitless, complete. I am Purnaha. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.